Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Lucas, for the introduction, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I have to put my computer here. Yes, I am going to give you some general information on digitalization in our program trAndeS. Then I will present our virtual portal, which is like the heart piece of our digital strategy. And then I have a couple of critical comments regarding digitalization. Yes, as all of us do, and actually as was required in the funding line, we have always done digitalization. We have always used virtual instruments, mainly in coordination. You might remember back then, that is before the pandemic, that was Skype. You remember Skype, or also WhatsApp. Today we use Zoom and WebEx, but I come back to that later. Since the beginning of the program, we run a virtual library and grant access to the virtual repositories of the EFFU, of the University Library of Free University of Berlin, and also access to the repositories of the Ibero-American Institute. That is done for our grad students and all the associated researchers of our trAndeS network. So that's quite a high number of persons, and they are really thankful. That's really beneficial for them because often they can access literature and publications they might not, or they cannot access in their own countries. Plus, we have a mailing list, a homepage. I will come back to the homepage in a minute. We do video content, and we have a very creative, I would say, presence in social media, above all in Instagram and Facebook, which are the two tools mostly used in Latin America, along with Twitter maybe, and TikTok, which I'm too old for. Okay, and currently we are discussing the use of artificial intelligence, as you probably all do, both with our students in Germany and in Peru, or in the other countries and institutions that form part in our program, as well as in Free University of Berlin. So as I said before, and actually it has been said a couple of times yesterday, the pandemic brought a massification of virtual class instruments like Zoom and WebEx, which led to a massification of virtual activities, both, as I said, classes and research activities, such as conferences, presentations, and workshops. And all of this is very good because, and this has also been said yesterday, we are more flexible. We are more climate friendly because we fly less and we produce less carbon emissions. It is very much efficient and cost efficient because we do not have to pay for flights and overseas stays and so forth. And all of this is great, but, and actually also this has been mentioned before, there are some darker sides to digitalization. Also, we have been discussing this a lot during the dinner yesterday, but I will come back to this in a minute. Before, I'm going to present you our virtual portal, or Portal Virtual, which can be accessed on our web page, and as I said, is one of the innovations of the second phase of the program and the core part, the heart piece of our digital component. This is our virtual portal. And there we offer different virtual materials for teaching and investigation in social inequalities and sustainable development. They can be accessed, or the homepage or the portal can be accessed from everywhere, and everything here is free. So we have different categories. We designed up to now 3 modules for digital studies. One on our core concept of multidimensional interdependent social inequalities, and one on the studies of elites in Latin America. We have been discussing this yesterday. Inequality is not so much about poverty, it's rather something about wealth and rich people. So these can be accessed, and they are basically for self-study. So it's all in Spanish, of course, because we do this for Latin American audience. And they are courses that each interested person can run through. There are introductions, there are units. We have tasks and practical exercises that can be done by the students. Okay, the third one, actually, just if you are interested, you can have a look into the models later on. Okay, and the third one is a collection of materials on the subject of gender and diversity sensible research and teaching. We did that in cooperation with our Institute for Gender Studies at the university, at the Freie Universität, Freie Universität of Berlin. Then we offer different documents on this portal, our working paper series, our course reader series, and our policy brief series, mostly done by researchers and alumni of the program. The publications funded by the project and done by the senior researchers of the project are available on the homepage on this portal. We try to do publications in open access, which can be a quite expensive endeavor, as you might know. Sometimes it's easier when we do it by ourselves or in cooperation with partners, such as this one, which was published with the in cooperation with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung of Bolivia. This one is done with an English British editorial, and it really costs several thousands of euros to provide open access. So I think that's a subject we should be discussing regarding digitalization. Then we have registers of publications of all our associated researchers. That is this one. That's more for information. Not all of them are open access. And a couple of video formats, like films of our events, but also modules that can be used to prepare classes or for self-studies on methods and investigation. Okay, and maybe the last one could be interesting. That's a video series with our alumni, where they explain how they did the transition from university to a professional career. So also we recommend to our students to watch these videos, because the alumni explain what they did in order to get a fixed standing in the job market. So okay, that's the portal. And now this one disappeared. I'm multi-method. Okay, now I would like to leave a couple of comments regarding digitalization, which will be maybe a lot more critical. The first point actually has been mentioned several times. We are far from full digitalization. There's still a lot of inequality. We heard that before. And that's not only regarding hard and software. Actually, our students in Latin America all have like smartphones, and most of them have access to computers. But the most critical point is connectivity. And that's not only a problem in Lima and Peru or in Bolivia, which is notoriously under-digitalized, but it's also a problem in my Berlin apartment. So I have really strong problems with connectivity, and that is really annoying. I think you all know what I'm talking about, because a reasonable conversation cannot take place when your connection fades away each 5 minutes. Moreover, many of us, and we also heard that before, work in countries that suffer from serious problems of political instability. So even if there is a good connectivity and if there is hardware and software, social and political problems might prevent that people can use digital instruments. And somehow this the emphasis on digitalization without taking into consideration these social and political conditions that may facilitate the use of digital instruments reflect that somehow the technical bias in most of development cooperation. So in the sense that there is a conviction that technology will do it, and without seeing what is around in terms of social and political problems. So that's the first point. The second point is you can do sporadically virtual classes, and that's a really good thing, as I said before. But in the long run, I'm convinced, and also my colleagues, the teaching needs personal context and not just once in a while, as has been said yesterday, but on a continuing strong basis. After, before, and during classes, students need to discuss with each other. They need the possibility to join each other in the next cafe or bar and discuss what they have heard in classes. So I think there's a strong point against the strong digitalization of teaching. I mean, we all know the tricks to make digital and virtual classes more amenable, to do breakout sessions and pause and do virtual yoga and whatever, but still teaching needs personal context. And I think the fact that many students have suffered so hard after the pandemic, I believe that all of you have these experiences, testify to that fact that teaching, learning, research is not a isolated sterile alone in front of the computer thing, not to mention all the health problems the teachers and professors had, starting with burning eyes and aching backs. I mean, we always have this, but it got worse during the virtualization during the pandemic. And in fact, we in the project sense a really strong virtual fatigue. So we sense that people are not longer so much that they do not want to participate so much in digital and virtual activities, so much that when we invited our Peruvian colleagues to come to a conference on digitalization, the answer was no, gracias, because too much. Then the third point, I think that the opportunities and the reservoir use for digitalization in research differ from discipline to discipline and associated methods. That's also a point that is hardly being taken into account. And I think that particularly in the social sciences, which is what we are doing, the reasonable use of digital instruments is very limited. It's not the case with natural sciences. mathematicians or geographers or engineers or whatever may collect numerical data, store them and run tests and statistics and so forth. And there is surely a lot of room for digitalization. But we sociologists, anthropologists, political scientists, sometimes even some economists, although they prefer the numerical part, we do often qualitative research. So hence we need to talk to people in person and we need to be there. So there's no room whatsoever for a full digitalization. It can help to do in interviews, for example, or like surveys or something like that. But at the end of the day, we need to be there. And that's especially the point for our younger scholars. And that also has been mentioned before. So maybe a last point, and then I'm done. To have personal context and personal field experience, as it is called, is particularly important for us who do area studies. We work in different countries. We need to understand what is going on there in place, and you can't do that sitting in front of your computer in your Berlin or Stuttgart or Frankfurt home department. So that's another thing. Okay, so to conclude, I think, and what I'm telling you is like a reflection from our work from the program. It's not just a general reflection, but it arose from, or it is arising from the work in the program trAndeS. We think that digitalization in teaching and research and international cooperation can be a good thing. It brought numerous improvements and opportunities, but we also learned that it is important to keep in mind that there are not a panacea or like, as has been said yesterday, a magic bullet. And we think that especially donors should keep that in mind when doing calls for projects and not succumb to the low-cost temptation that digitalization and the use of virtual instruments may bring. So at the end, it should always be considered in detail who can use which instruments and for what. So, and there is a real big variation among disciplines, methods, subjects, and even research questions. Okay, I'll leave it there.